The most honest email my STBXW has sent me. Or is it just more manipulation? My STBXW wrote me this lengthy email that seems both honest and a little off-putting. It's the first email in which she lays it all out and doesn't attempt to pin the blame on me or anything. She makes frequent allusions to the fact that she is a narcissist, which is a novel concept. I get the impression she's done some research on narcissists and their characteristics, and she's framing things from that point of view. See her mention about narcissism 101. I'm not going to respond to that since I'm remaining in North Carolina. However, it really brings me some comfort, since it is the only email I've received that is not diluted. What are your opinions on the matter? I understand that you no longer care about me, but I still care about you. I'll always be in love with you. You are the most important person in my life. No one knows me as well as you do, and no one will ever know me as well as you do. Despite the fact that you've seen all of my flaws, I like to believe that you've also seen the best aspects of me. And, while the ugly has taken precedence over the beautiful for the time being, the beautiful still lives. You are familiar with my heart, my shortcomings, my greatest and worst qualities. You're well-versed on the subject. I'm sure you do it better than I do. I shall adore you for the rest of my life since I'm familiar with both of your personalities. I've seen everything about you, every aspect of your personality. I'm aware of your presence. You have given me a great deal. You have always been there for me when I was feeling uneasy, fearful, or depressed. You have rescued me from the depths of despair more times than I can count. At the time of our meeting, I was feeling confused and terrified, uncertain of my place in the world. And then you came upon me. You were my guidance. You were the one who brought me home. It's the only place I've ever known as home. The only location that, at the sacrifice of my own health and well-being. I do this to be of service, but I also do it to get confirmation that I am a decent person, a good friend, and an excellent employee. You're correct. I didn't seek assistance while I was having difficulties over the previous month. I didn't tell you the truth or allow you in. I was hoping that you would be able to read my thoughts and notice the indications so that I wouldn't have to reveal my weakness. I was afraid you'd have a negative opinion of me since I'm weak. For not managing my trash properly, for not saying no, for not taking care of myself when it seems so easy to do otherwise. After all, I assumed I'd have to explain why I'm incapable of saying no, that I'd have to take down my protective screen of self-assurance and worthiness in order to show who I actually am, fearful and unworthy. I wouldn't tell you anything new since you already knew it. Instead, I sought confirmation for the polar opposite of what I believed. I has ever felt like home has been right next to you, in your company. You taught me how to appreciate myself, how to put in effort, and how to pursue my goals. How to persevere in the face of adversity. It's incredible how much we were able to accomplish as a team as two college students who didn't have the same advantages as many of our contemporaries and friends. From the dining room table, we started Company 1. We created Company 2. On the back of a ridiculous notion I came up with 5 minutes before proposing for the first time. We learned what we needed to know in our living room and went on to have successful jobs in respectable industries. And I honestly feel that it was all made possible because we have an unrivaled team on our side. Throughout it all, we were there for one another. While you were learning skill, I was stuck in a dreadful job that made me miserable. It was because you stayed with business, although they didn't recognize you, that I was able to develop skill. There isn't anything we can't do as a team. However, I had lost sight of this. I became too caught up in the idea of being validated, of feeling worthwhile in someone else's eyes. I'd lost track of who I truly am, someone that only you are aware of. Please accept my apologies. My life I've fought with the idea of being validated. The reason for this is partially because my family is primarily concerned with how things look to others, and partly because I don't feel I'm up to the task. I'm well aware that my inflated sense of self and narcissistic tendencies might lead others to think differently, but I'm also well aware that I'm not good enough. For the simple reason that I don't feel my friends would like me if I was simply myself, I go out of my way to get their approval. I lavish them with presents and lavish them with excessive praise for little accomplishments. I make myself accessible to everyone and anybody who is going through a difficult moment. Sometimes went to work looking for praises to convince myself that I truly understood what I was doing and that I could be successful in this position. When best friend's ex ended his relationship with her, I stayed up all night chatting to best friend, so that I might be told that I was a good friend. It was my intention to shame you into refraining from bringing up unpleasant topics so that I wouldn't feel bad about not making time or being honest. And then there's K. I've never thought of myself as gorgeous or intriguing or intelligent. I understand that coming from a narcissist, this is difficult to accept, but it is real. I'm continually tearing myself apart. It seems like every time we're out with friends and I say anything that's too long or too passionately, I return home and feel bad about myself. I keep replaying the discussion in my thoughts over and over and over again. In order for me to feel I was attractive or seductive, I dress up and parade about you, hoping for a compliment that would make me believe I was. As I began to lose weight, my health began to deteriorate. You tell me over and over again that I was lovely, but I couldn't believe it. It was for this reason that I fished for it so often. I really wanted to believe it. Having it with muscles find me beautiful or intriguing, despite the fact that I'm very thin and sickly, justified my existence. It's a decision I've made. There will be no excuses. Despite my nervousness and dread, I was frightened of suffering a panic attack on my own. I sought out his attention. I wanted to be taken care of, and I wanted everyone to think I was intriguing, attractive, and intelligent. It was a complete failure. Except for you, no one else could make me feel secure, cared for, attractive, or anything else. No one has ever done so, and no one will ever do so. I understand that it's difficult to trust anything I say, and I don't blame you for feeling that way. I've completely lost any credibility. That was something I did to myself. But I want you to understand that this was not a planned event. I didn't do anything to violate the rules physically before coming there. I hadn't spoken to him in weeks or months before traveling to another nation. I didn't care about him then, and I don't care about him now. A clumsy, opportunistic blunder, terrible judgment, and potentially life-altering choice. It might have been someone else if he hadn't been present. He doesn't mean anything, not now, not then, and not ever. I was only looking for attention in order to feel better about myself. The fundamentals of narcissism. I was just thinking about myself. I hadn't given any thought to how it might affect you. You're also correct in assuming that I would have returned home and kept it hidden from you. But I'm also aware that we had planned to meet on Sunday to talk about all of the difficult subjects. And I was mentally bracing myself for the possibility of it happening. I was getting ready to tell everyone about how I'd been harming myself and putting everything in danger. However, I'm not sure whether I would have told you about what occurred in another nation. It's so unfair that I made a commitment to try everything before tossing things away, and then I didn't follow through on that promise. Instead of depending on my greatest friend, the most important person in my life, I have chosen to harm you instead. Story 2. My parents have agreed to a proposal for me. How can I tell them that I already have a fiancé? 24F. Come from a culture where arranged marriages are fairly popular. My elder brothers married ladies my parents picked for them, despite the fact that they had already migrated away from our society and to the United States. I've been living on my own since I was 20 years old. I had my own home and a good career, and although it was unusual in our society to allow young women to live on their own, my parents were really supportive. They gave me everything, but we never discussed marriage, since it goes without saying that all children marry the person chosen by their parents. Dating had always been forbidden for me, but not for my brother. They were simply informed that they could never marry the females they dated unless their parents approved, which was very impossible. Despite my shame, I did not notify my parents when I began dating my now fiancé 28M, since I had never hidden anything from them. A year later, he proposed, and despite understanding every constraint on me, I said yes because it was honestly what I wanted, and somewhere in my mind, I was and still am aware that he is precisely the kind of person my parents would select for me, especially his supporting cast. We are from the same caste, and my parents place a high value on marriage within the caste. We've been engaged for 4 months, and I've tried every day to get the confidence to inform my parents, but I couldn't. I live 6 hours away from my birthplace and have only seen my parents once since my engagement. My parents contacted 2 days ago to ask if I could come to their house since they needed to talk about something important with me. When I compelled them to tell, they stated they found a nice proposal for me and believed they should accept it, but I still need to see the family, particularly the male, before they approve. Now, I'm going to see them in a few days, and I know I should tell them, but I'm terrified and worried. I'm afraid of their response, but I'm even more afraid of their rejection. I genuinely like my fiancé, and I don't want to leave him because of my parents. I don't even have a backup plan if they say no to marrying him. My fiancé is aware of the issue with my parents. He wants to assist me in telling them, but I suppose they'll be much angrier if I show up with him. I've chosen to speak with them first and invite them to meet him. I'm sure most of you aren't acquainted with this circumstance, but if you can provide any suggestions, I'd be thankful.